What is leadership presence and how does it impact my effectiveness? Welcome to another episode of Relearning Leadership, where we explore a specific leadership challenge and break it down to help improve your leadership, your organization, and possibly your personal life. I'm Pete Perrins, and today we're going to explore the concept of leadership presence. So let me start with two stories, contrasting stories. The first story is one where I was leading a workshop, probably 40 plus leaders in the room. This happened to be overseas. And I got to the hotel where it was being hosted in the hotel room. And I usually don't worry too much about hotel rooms, but this was a nightmare. Lighting was terrible, really dim. This was in one of these hotels that was kind of an architectural landscape. And they had these old classic huge pillars in the room all over the place with Y connections holding the ceiling up, blocking everybody's view from different angles, something you hate as a trainer, that people can't see you or slides or videos, whatever. And then they oriented the room in such a way, not what I had asked for, but it was a vertical long room. I'm on one end, and that's, I was like, oh no, terrible, right? I want to be realigned. So all morning, right, I'm trying to adjust this. I'm trying to fix this because I want to be present when I'm teaching, and I want to be there. And this morning, I was lost, right? And even to the point where people came in and I was really short and agitated with them. In fact, somebody later in the day said, Pete, I came in the room and you just said, hey, go find your seat. Let's start. And I was like, oh my God, I fail. Total failure. I think the entire day was not my best moment. Now contrast this with a class I attended. Bill Joyner, author of Leadership Agility, and was leading a 360 class for some of us coaches and educators. And I remember when I walked into the room, Bill Joyner came up to me and was incredibly attentive to me as an individual. And then I noticed that throughout the morning before the workshop started, he did this with every single participant, right? This intentional connection and attention he's giving these people. And there was a point when we did sit down, we did start talking, realize, oh crap, the books weren't prepared right, or they weren't printed or something. And there was this moment of panic, but he was able to recover fairly quickly and did not, have an negative impact on that session. So what do we think of when we hear the word presence? Well, presence is actually a fairly complex word with many different definitions. So let's look at a few of these and how they might relate. So number one, it's attendance. It's showing up. It's just, I'm here. Bueller, it's that concept of just being there. Number two, existence. Okay, so I'm here, but am I mentally here? Am I engaged in the process of being here, right? Am I connected to what's going on here? Now, third is a demeanor. Now, what's demeanor? Demeanor is more of like our body language. How are we carrying ourselves? Do I strut into the room with confidence and authority? Do I sulk into the room with, don't call on me, I'm just here, right? So a demeanor is the way we carry ourselves, that body language. And then there's this aura, right? Aura is a little bit more about our emotion, like what's going on? How is that projecting? Am I happy and excited, or am I sad and a bit, down on things? This concept of confidence and stuff. And that starts to tie into composure, right? Confidence is a bit of composure. Composure is also self-control. Composure is also a little bit about how calm, the difference between myself and Bill Joyner, that calmness and composure, which a lot of times, we are products of our environment. Right. And so how we're showing up is also a reflection of what's going on in the moment in our lives and, other meetings that we've gone through, et cetera. And the last one I want to throw in here, kind of a tweak. Presence or present is a gift, right? And you think about all these other things, being in attention, being in existence, being a positive demeanor and a collectiveness, right? Our aura. That's a gift. It's a gift you can bring to a meeting that says, I care. I care to be here. Okay, so we've laid out the definition of presence, but now let's maybe just explore why presence is so important to our leadership. Well, think of Catalyst leadership. At its core is really the ability to sense and respond in the moment. Now, something I learned from Bill Joyner in one of the workshops we did was to imagine a camera lens. And so I encourage you to kind of zoom your hands out in front of you like a square, almost like you're taking a picture. And, when you got your hands way out there, what do you see? You see, okay, I can see Pete, or, I can see a camera, or I can see a light or a picture, right? I can zoom in and I can look at something, right? But it's really focused and narrow. And I start to pull back and I start to come in. Now what's happening, right? I'm getting that wide angle lens. And what do I see? I'm starting to see everything, monitors and, bookshelves and lights and the microphone and the computer. I'm seeing all sorts of things interrelated. So we've got this narrow view and we've got this broad perspective view. Now, presence, and indeed Catalyst leadership, is this ability, right? It's not one, right? Here I get the detail. I see what's going on with the individual. Here I get the broad perspective, but you notice what I lose in each one. When I'm focused on the individual, I lose the wide angle. When I got the wide angle, I lose the details. And yet, if I'm going between them two, I'm task switching a little bit. This is an art form as much as a science. This ability of leadership in the moment, right, is corely connected to your presence. And that awareness and recognition of what's going on is central to your effectiveness as a leader. So how does presence relate to emotional intelligence? So when we think of emotional intelligence, really, this is kind of rooted in two things, right? First of all, am I emotionally intelligent of my own emotions and feelings? And secondly, am I emotionally intelligent to be able to perceive and pick up, notice other emotions and feelings in the room? Right now, while this is something I can teach, this is not something that I would suggest is one of my competencies, right? This is something I've had to work on for quite some time. In fact, I've gotten coaching on this through a couple of coaches really helped me work through a couple of these things. Now, one of the coaches I had, actually one of our ALJ guides, Sarah Bigwood, she said something to me that stuck. She said, Pete, feelings are facts. Now, as a trained engineer, right, this stuck out to me. This kind of threw me back. It's like, wait a second. Facts are data points. Facts are tangible. Facts are real. Feelings, on the other hand, are, fuzzy and feelings are fluid and manipulable and things like that. They're a little softer. And she said, Pete, yes, the emotions are under that surface. But think about the feeling is really just a body's data point. Feeling is a connection to the emotion. Feeling is a fact. It's there. It's present. And that, as somebody who thinks more logically, that was really a kind of a key indicator into a little bit better EQ about, not only the importance of my own feelings and how it's representing something, but also maybe how others are feeling, how that might be pointing to something else. So think about emotional intelligence isn't really possible without a presence. And so I believe leadership presence is core to activating that EQ. So how does presence relate to power style? Now, we learned in another episode, power style is a dynamic rooted in two sources. One is power from within, and the other is power of others, right? The within is the assertive power. The others is the accommodative power. So how does presence play? I want to take you back to a coaching relationship I had with one of the leader I was working with. And this was a fairly high-ranking, company officer. She was in charge of multiple product owners and products. It was called what's called a product manager. She was strategically responsible for the strategy and direction and execution of multiple products in software. So it had a lot of responsibility and people, a small team of people that she directly related to, but then she would also involve in meetings with the product teams as well. But what she heard in feedback from her own leaders and even some others is that her voice was muted. Like they didn't hear enough from her. They didn't feel like they had enough connection and direction. And, things were a bit vague and open. And, she talked a lot about, being rooted in servant leadership. And, that servant leadership is often perceived as a very accommodative power style. We put others first on and we support them. And that's a really respectful sense of leadership and can be really powerful in many ways. But for her, it was becoming a bit one-sided. So we talked, we explored, we looked at different areas in her leadership. And one of the things that started to emerge is just her presence in meetings. Where did she sit? She often would sit at the back or side and let others come to the front and center. She would sit back and down. In a sense, her presence in the room reflected her intentions. And so we said, well, let's, what would it be like if we experimented? Sitting a different place in the room, sit at the center, sit, raise your chair up a little bit, sit a little bit more forward. Maybe once in a while, let's stand and facilitate a dialogue at the whiteboard. And what she found just by changing some of this presence, her demeanor, her confidence, her engagement, changed her power style. She became a bit more what we might consider respectfully assertive just through changing some of her demeanor. And it was incredibly powerful to see the transformation in her, in the confidence. Like all these skills were in her, but this enabled it to maybe come out in a way that it hadn't before. Okay, so where do we go from here? I encourage you to start to explore your leadership presence in various situations and meetings. How are you showing up and what is being projected and how is that being perceived? And maybe even getting some feedback on your leadership from some others to say, how are they seeing your leadership? And I'll leave you with a checklist that might help as you join meetings to think about, to maybe expose some of your internal presence. Number one, what am I feeling right now? And what emotions do I want to bring to this meeting? Number two, where is my energy and what energy is needed in this meeting? Number three, what is my body language saying, right? And what do I want it to project? Number four, where's my attention and what is distracting me? And finally, checklist number five, what is my sense of calmness, self-control, and confidence? So I enjoyed spending some time with you today. I appreciate you joining us and enjoy the journey.